I never imagined that a simple walk home could leave such a deep scar on my life. My name is Nathan, and I grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Springfield where everyone knew each other by name, and strange things just didn't happen. That day marked the end of 5th grade, and for the first time ever, my parents trusted me to walk back from school on my own. A privilege they reserved only for the big kids, as they used to say. I was thrilled, but there was also a strange flutter in my chest, something I couldn't quite place, not yet. The route home led me through Jefferson Park, a place I knew like the back of my hand. I had walked it 1,000 times, either with my mom or dad. But that afternoon, as I crossed it alone, something felt off. The trees looked taller, their shadows stretched longer, and even the birds seemed quieter, as if the world itself was holding its breath. That's when I saw him. A man stepped out from one of the winding trails. He wore a spotless blue blazer, dark pants, and a wide-brimmed hat completely inappropriate for the warm weather. He stopped in front of me, smiled, and spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You're Nathan, right? Your dad asked me to come get you. Something came up at work." His voice was calm, almost friendly, but his eyes sent chills down my spine. He held out a folded piece of paper. I glanced at it. The handwriting looked exactly like my father's. It said I should trust him, but it didn't make sense. I hadn't received any messages. I didn't know this man. And the worst part, how did he know my name? A knot formed in my stomach. My mom always said, if something feels wrong, don't ignore it. So I took a deep breath and said, all right, but can I get a drink at the corner store first? I pointed toward a small kiosk near the park entrance. He nodded, completely unfazed. The moment I turned and knew he couldn't see me, I grabbed my phone from my pocket with trembling hands and dialed my dad's number. He answered instantly. "Dad, there's a man here. He says you sent him," I said, my voice barely steady. "What? No. Go back to school right now and find a teacher," he shouted, panic in his tone. I ran like never before. I didn't dare look back. When I reached the school, I told the principal everything. She immediately called the police. Once the officers arrived, they asked me to describe the man. One of them went pale. They knew him. He'd been reported before for trying to abduct kids, and this time, he'd almost succeeded. That day, I learned how easily the line between the ordinary and the horrifying can vanish in an instant. And if you love terrifying stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. What I'm about to tell you is just the beginning. Nearly 2 years passed since that afternoon in the park. My parents, understandably, became even more protective. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone, and every outing was carefully planned. Still, deep down, I tried to convince myself that it had been a one-time thing, that it wouldn't happen again. It was during my sophomore year in high school when the school planned a 3-day trip to Pine Valley, a popular spot known for its scenic views, cobblestone streets, and cozy cabins. It was my first time traveling so far without family. I shared a room with Jason, my best friend since elementary school. The hotel was made up of bungalows surrounded by a thick forest, far enough from town that the nights were silent, eerily silent. The first 2 days were filled with hikes, jokes, and long walks, but the last night, that's when everything changed. After dinner, Jason and I went over to hang out with some classmates in their cabin. We spent hours chatting and laughing, like nothing else existed. By the time we left, it was past midnight. The sky was overcast, and a light drizzle had started, hinting at a coming storm. We walked quickly along the gravel path, dimly lit by old yellow lanterns. That's when we saw it. Just a few yards from our cabin, standing next to a tree, was a tall figure. A man wearing a black hooded jacket, his face mostly hidden in shadow. He wasn't moving, just staring in our direction. At first, we thought maybe he was another guest, maybe an employee, but something about his posture made us freeze. Jason whispered, "Do you know him?" I shook my head. I'd never seen him before. We walked faster, not running, but definitely not slowing down either. He didn't move. When we reached our door, Jason fumbled with the key. We rushed inside and double-locked it. Our hearts were pounding like we just sprinted for blocks. We peeked through the window. Nothing. He was gone. Did he leave? I asked, though I wasn't convinced. Or maybe he's just hiding, Jason replied. We tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Outside, we heard footsteps, slow, steady, circling the cabin, again and again. We stayed in our beds, paralyzed with fear. We never knew if it had really happened, or if our minds were just playing tricks on us. The next morning, we told the teachers. One of them went to the front desk. The staff confirmed that only one night guard had been on duty, and he never left the main building. When they reviewed the security footage, nothing. No trace of the man, no movement, no odd activity. But what chilled us to the bone was what the receptionist said next. None of our staff wear black. Our uniform is always white. Always. From that day on, the quiet of the woods no longer felt peaceful to me. It felt like a warning. After that night in Pine Valley, I came back home changed. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want to worry them. But something inside me had shifted, a feeling that none of it had been random. Though I tried to get back to normal, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that it wasn't over, that it would return. And it did, in a way I never could have imagined. It was senior year. One of those moments when your world revolves around friends, laughter, and dreams about the future. The final day of class before break had arrived, and many students had decided to skip. I did too. I wanted to do something different with my closest group. Mark, Eric, Owen, and me. Rain had ruined our original plan, an afternoon at the reservoir, so someone suggested something more thrilling. In a nearby neighborhood called Hillridge, there was an old elementary school that had been closed for over 10 years, abandoned. Rumor had it they were planning to tear it down, but it still stood, covered in graffiti, shattered windows, and wrapped in stories whispered among the teens in the area. "What if we go in? Just for a bit," Mark suggested. "Just to take some pictures," Owen added. Against all better judgment, I agreed. Eric drove us there. He had his license already. We parked behind the building on a side street lined with crooked trees and crumbling walls. No cameras. The rusted gate was so warped we slipped through without a problem. We used a rock to break the glass of a side window. One by one, we climbed in. Inside, the air was thick. It smelled of mold, damp paper, and something else I couldn't quite identify. The classroom still had desks, chalkboards with faded marks, and even old drawings taped to the walls. It felt like a place frozen in time. We moved quietly, using only the light from our phones. The rain tapped steadily against the tin roof, and the shadows shifted with every step we took. It felt like the building itself was alive, breathing around us. We were just about to turn down the north hallway when something stirred in one of the classrooms at the far end. A figure, someone was there. We all saw it, an outline of a person peeking through a half-open door. The moment our eyes met, the figure slipped back into the room, soundless. None of us spoke. We instinctively took a step back, then another. We began to jog, and then we ran. We didn't look behind us. We sprinted through the main hallway until we reached what looked like an old kindergarten room. We slammed the door shut, turned off our lights, held our breath. The only sound was the steady drumming of the rain, until a creak. The door began to open. Slowly, a silhouette appeared in the doorway. It was a man, or at least that's what he looked like. His face was pale and blank, utterly expressionless. He stared at us like he knew exactly who we were. I don't even know how we managed it, but we forced a window open and jumped out one by one. We ran through the downpour, straight to the car. Nobody said a word on the drive home. A month later, they demolished the school. They built a children's playground over the ruins. No one believed us when we tried to explain what we saw that night, but we knew the truth. Because that face, that silence, I'd seen it before, and I knew it wouldn't be the last time. The weeks that followed were strange. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, something gnawed at me inside. I started having the same dream over and over. Endless hallways, classrooms with no windows, and a shadow watching me from the far corner. It never moved, but each night it stood a little closer. It was a Friday afternoon, right before a long weekend. My parents had to attend a work event out of town. Since they couldn't pick me up, they arranged for my aunt and uncle to get me after school. The front office already had it on record, only they were allowed to take me home, so everything was supposedly under control. When the final bell rang, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and walked out. One by one, my classmates left, until the parking lot was almost empty. I waited patiently by the fence, but my aunt and uncle didn't show up. 10 minutes passed, then 20, almost 45. I decided to head to the front office and let someone know. As I made my way through the main hallway, I passed a man, probably in his early 40s, walking toward me from the opposite direction. He had a sports duffel slung over his shoulder and moved awkwardly, like he wasn't sure where he was supposed to be. Something about him made me uneasy. I looked down, trying not to stare, and kept going. When I got to the front desk, I explained that my ride hadn't arrived. The receptionist invited me to sit while she tried to call them. She dialed a few times, but no one answered. And then he came back. The same man, but now wearing the grey janitor uniform used by the school's maintenance staff. The change had been so fast, I couldn't process it. He walked right up to the window and in the calmest voice imaginable said, "I live just a few blocks from here. I know this kid's uncle and aunt. I can take him home while you wait for them." The receptionist looked relieved. She turned to me and asked, "Is that okay? He doesn't seem dangerous, and it's on his way." I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. There was something deeply wrong. How did he know I was waiting for my aunt and uncle? Nobody had said anything out loud. Before I could react, he gently but firmly grabbed my arm and started leading me toward the front entrance. My body felt frozen. My legs didn't want to move, but they did. As we passed the lobby, I heard the hum of an engine. I looked toward the schoolyard, and there it was, my uncle's car. "There! That's my uncle!" I shouted, yanking my arm free. The man hesitated for just a second, then turned and walked briskly toward the north wing of the school. My uncle rushed out of the car, alarmed. After I explained what happened, he went straight to the principal's office. The school searched for the man. No one knew who he was. No one recognized his name. No one even knew who had hired him. And the receptionist, she never returned to work again. That's when I realized that danger doesn't always come dressed as a monster. Sometimes it wears the clothes of someone trustworthy. Tap the yellow lamp icon and stay with us. Together we'll uncover disturbing mysteries, because what you're about to hear is one of the most unsettling things I've ever experienced. It was the final week before summer break. Technically, we were still in class, but everyone knew nothing important was being taught anymore. We showed up just to hang out, joke around, and count down the days. That morning, my last period was in the gym. After several rounds of sloppy basketball and a lot of laughing, I got incredibly thirsty. I excused myself and headed toward the drinking fountain near the main entrance of the old wing. It was the only one that still worked well, though the hallway that led to it had always given me a weird vibe. It was half lit, with old metal lockers that creaked in the wind and walls that smelled like damp cement. That day, the hallway felt unusually quiet. Too quiet. No voices, no footsteps, nothing. And that's when I saw him. A tall, lanky young man with a tense expression and furrowed brow was walking toward me from the far end. He wore loose-fitting pants, held up with one hand, and carried no bag or school ID. His face looked like it was barely holding back rage. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye, and for a second, I thought he was coming straight at me. But no, he walked right past without a word. I reached the fountain, unsettled, feeling something wasn't right. I bent down to drink quickly, and just as I raised my head, bang! A loud, sharp noise, like a heavy metal door being slammed shut. I spun around, but no one was there. Then, another sound, and another, each one distinct, erratic, terrifying. They weren't doors, they were gunshots. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I ran, took the side hallway, and locked myself inside the faculty restroom. I turned off the lights and shut one of the stall doors. My heart was pounding so violently I thought it might burst from my chest. Outside, footsteps echoed back and forth. Screams. more gunfire, and then silence. A silence that burned. What felt like hours passed before the intercom crackled on, and the principal's voice shouted, "Everyone stay where you are! Lock the doors, turn off the lights. This is not a drill." I held my breath. I had no idea if I was alone, or if someone else was hiding in there with me. Eventually, a familiar voice called out, "Is anyone in here? It's Mr. Reyes." I opened the stall door, shaking. I was evacuated with other students. Outside was chaos, police cars, parents crying, teachers calling out names. 2 students had been injured. The shooter was the same guy who had walked right past me just minutes earlier. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. What truly shattered me was his face. It was him, not exactly the same, but close enough that I knew, somehow, I had seen him before. And maybe I'd been seeing him for much longer than I could remember. After the shooting, something broke inside me. It wasn't just fear. It was the realization that reality had cracks, that none of these events were isolated incidents. They were fragments of something bigger. I started going back through every moment since I was a kid. The man in the park, the figure in the woods, the pale face in the abandoned school, the fake janitor who tried to take me, and now, this armed boy with the same vacant stare. Why was it always someone different, but with the same eyes? I opened an old notebook and started writing. Dates, places, every detail I could recall. At first it seemed random, but the more I wrote, the more I noticed patterns. Rainy days, school-related locations, lone male figures, the silence, and most of all, that stare. Empty, but piercing. As if they knew something I didn't. It wasn't something I could tell anyone. How do you explain it without sounding paranoid? And yet, every time I closed my eyes, I saw those empty hallways, heard the footsteps, felt the tingle on the back of my neck, like someone was getting closer, without making a sound. And the scariest part? It started happening even when I was wide awake. One time, during class, I had that eerie feeling again, like someone was staring at me. I slowly turned my head, and for a split second, I swear I saw a silhouette standing by the door. When I blinked, it was gone. Another afternoon, after getting off the train at Lincoln Station, I walked through the sea of commuters and caught sight, across the platform, of a face watching me, frozen in place, expressionless, his sunken eyes locked onto mine. I didn't recognize him right away, but somewhere inside me, I knew who he was. That night, I couldn't sleep. It felt like my life had been laid out like a blueprint. Like ever since that first time in the park, something had marked me. Not physically, but spiritually. As if some force had chosen me. As if for reasons I still couldn't grasp, I had to witness all of this. As though I was being prepared for something darker, something final. Because I started noticing another pattern. Each encounter, each moment, was more intense than the last. Closer, more aggressive. It felt like that presence, whatever it was drawing nearer. And the scariest part, I started feeling like I was never alone anymore. Not when I walked, not when I slept, not even when I thought. That's when the dreams started changing. There used to be fragments, endless corridors, doors opening by themselves, distant footsteps echoing through empty spaces. But now, the details were sharp, and what frightened me most was that I could feel them. The cold floor beneath my bare feet, the damp smell soaking into the walls, the static crackling in the air, and always, at the far end of the hallway, him, that figure, standing still, watching, never moving, but I did. My legs moved on their own, like something was pulling me toward him, and I always woke up at the same moment, right before I could fully see his face, until one night, I didn't wake up. I kept walking. I could feel my heartbeat in the dream, as if I were awake, and for the first time he spoke. His voice was like a whisper dipped in static, cold but distant. "You've always seen me, Nathan, from the beginning. That's why you'll remember me." That moment, his face became clear, and I knew it would all of them. The man in the park, the one in the woods, the boy in the restroom, the janitor at school, every version of that same face layered into one, as if they all existed at once, stacked through time. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, my sheets twisted around me. The clock read 3:03 a.m. My chest felt like it would explode, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was my arm. On my right forearm, there were 3 thin marks, like scratches, fresh, bleeding slightly. I hadn't made them in my sleep. There was no way, and yet, there they were. That's when I realized this wasn't just about dreams. It was something else, something breaking through the barrier between this world and the one beyond, the one we know nothing about. From that point on, every time I shut my eyes, I didn't dream about just anything. I dreamed about him, and each time, he was closer. I couldn't live like that anymore. It wasn't enough to write in a notebook, or to pretend the scratches were nothing, or to ignore the fleeting visions of that figure in the corner of every dream. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. If I didn't find answers, I was going to lose my mind. So I decided to go back to where it all began, the old, abandoned elementary school. Months had passed since that night we ran through the storm. Now, in its place, there was a shiny new playground, bright benches, fresh trees, but the ground, it was still the same. I went to the municipal records office, a grey, lifeless building that felt like it hadn't been updated in decades. I asked for access to the historical files about the school. They made me wait over an hour. No one understood why I wanted those documents. I didn't know how to explain it either. Finally, someone handed me a dusty file folder full of old newspaper clippings and internal memos. I started flipping through without really knowing what I was looking for, until I found something. An article dated October 2001. Custodian at Roosevelt Elementary reported missing, no leads. It said his name was Lucas Bell, full-time maintenance staff. One day, he just didn't show up for work. The janitor's closet was locked from the inside, but it was empty. He was never seen again. I kept reading. Some students had commented that he'd been acting strangely the days before, talking to himself, saying he was seeing things between the classrooms. But as always, no one took him seriously. I flipped more pages, searching for a photo. And there it was, his face. There was no mistaking it. He looked a bit younger, hair fuller, but those eyes, cold, empty, that same gaze that had haunted me for years. A chill ran down my spine, so intense, I almost dropped the file. I closed it, returned everything, and walked out without saying a word. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, but because I couldn't deny it anymore. The thing that had followed me since I was a kid, that man without time, without a voice, the one who appeared with different faces but the same silence. He wasn't a stranger. He was part of something much older, something that never left. Ever since I saw that photograph, I couldn't go back to pretending. Something inside me completely shattered. This wasn't just fear anymore. It was certainty. The figure that had followed me since that park in Willow Creek wasn't a random person. He was Lucas Bell, or what was left of him, because he didn't seem human anymore. At least, not entirely. I began seeing him more often, not in dreams, in real life. The first time was in the rearview mirror of the school bus. All the seats behind me were empty, but in a blink, I saw him sitting at the back, watching me, unmoving. When I looked again, he was gone. The second time was a week later. I was leaving the movies with some friends, walking through Crestwood Plaza. We passed a shuttered shop. In the reflection of the dusty glass, I saw him standing beside me. I knew no one was there. No one else saw him, but I did. And each appearance lasted longer, no longer just flashes. Now, he was a presence, fixed, constant. One night I woke up for no reason, mouth dry, pulse racing. I opened my eyes and saw nothing, but I felt it, like someone was standing at the foot of my bed. No noise, no shadow, just weight in the air, as if the room was occupied. That feeling didn't go away. From then on, strange things began happening. Objects moving on their own, Doors left open when I swore I'd closed them. Lights flickering, only in my room. The musty smell, just like in the abandoned school, seeping in without explanation. I went to the doctor, ran tests. Everything was normal, but I knew it wasn't, because that figure, that man, that thing, no longer haunted me from afar. Now he was here, close, always one step behind. Sometimes I didn't see him, but I felt him. When I climbed stairs, when I shut my eyes in the shower, when I turned quickly and no one was there, but for a split second I swore someone had been. And the scariest part, I'd stopped running, because I knew that eventually he'd catch up to me. Today was my last day at college. No ceremony, no speeches, no hugs. I just packed my things, said goodbye to a few professors, and walked those hallways one last time after 5 years. I didn't feel sad or happy, just hollow, like something was missing. It was early, hardly anyone around. The sky was grey, thick with moisture. I walked the central corridor, the one connecting the academic building with administration. Off to the side stood a water fountain, the same kind of rusted fountain I remembered from grade school. I approached it out of habit, not thirst, and then I saw him. He was standing there just a few feet away, as always, still, silent, Lucas Bell, or whatever remained of him. This time, it wasn't a memory, not a flicker, not a reflection. He was physically there. I could smell him. Sour, like wet paper. His skin looked even paler, deader. And then, for the first time in all these years, he moved. He took a step toward me and spoke. "Now, it's your turn to carry me." His words weren't whispered. They rang clear, like they echoed inside my head. I don't remember what happened next. I don't remember running or screaming. No one else was in that hallway. No one saw me leave. All I know is that I woke up, but not in my bed. I woke up in a park I didn't recognize, with rusted playgrounds and trees far too big to belong there. And standing in front of me was a boy, around 10 years old, staring at me, scared, like he knew me. And in that moment, I understood. It was him. I was watching him. I was standing in his path, silent, still, just like Lucas had once done to me. I felt the weight of the blue jacket on my shoulders and the hat. What I feared the most had happened. I was him. I was the one who follows. And now, everything made sense. It wasn't a curse. It was a cycle, one that never ends, one that simply passes from one to the next. Because there's something, someone, that needs to be seen, to keep being seen, to be remembered, feared. And now, I'm the one waiting in empty corridors. I'm the one watching from mirrors. I'm the one just one step behind. And you, who made it this far? Are you sure you're alone?